Welcome to the Real Time with Big Time podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Cameron Easton. You can follow the show on Twitter at Real Time Big Time, and make sure you like and subscribe if you're watching on YouTube. Garrett, it's episode 1. I'm excited. We've had so many technical difficulties trying to get this episode rolling, but here we are.
It's just our luck, to be honest with you. But you know what? It's okay. We'll work it out.
I mean, we've talked so long about having a podcast. Me and you have known each other for a couple years now, and we've had so many great conversations with sports, music, games, all that stuff. So, we thought having this podcast would be a great way to share that with people, and we thought it's been entertaining up to this point. So,
Oh, big time for sure it has been.
big time, big time. Yeah, so there's a lot we're going to talk about on this show, not this episode specifically, but on the show we're going to talk about football, college football, NFL. We're going to talk about NHL, video games, music, all that stuff. But today specifically, we're going to focus in on the NFL because it was just a busy day on Sunday. Monday Night Football is happening tonight. Episode's coming out on Tuesday, so we're not really going to go too much into depth on the Monday night game. We're really going to focus in on the big games that happened on Sunday, and let's just get right into it with the big news of today. Odell Beckham Jr. is out for the year with a torn ACL. Horrible loss for the Browns, but they played a great game yesterday. What are your thoughts, Garrett?
Well, as a Browns fan, I think that based on what we saw yesterday after he got hurt, Baker kind of formed back into what we saw in 2018 without Odell being there. And I think kind of what some of the fan base is thinking, it might be better off in the long run because Baker's not pressured to get Odell the ball. And I think we kind of saw some of that yesterday. I'm excited to see if that's the case or not because, obviously Baker's had rocky games and he's had good games. So I think that if we decide to go on a run here and do something crazy without Odell, I think that he gets traded next year because it's just going to prove the fact that we do not need him. We got plenty of wide receiver depth. We got Rashard Higgins, and we got Donovan Peoples-Jones. Both came up on that last drive huge. Jarvis Landry didn't even get a target, and Jarvis Landry did not whine, did not throw a fit. He's there. So I think that really it may be for the better. I hope. I don't hope because I don't want him to be hurt, but you know what I mean? I hope that we end up coming out on the other side cleaner. So
Yeah, and we've discussed this before, and I don't really see it as a hot take, but I think we're kind of moving in a direction now because we've seen the Steelers lose Antonio Brown with all the stuff that happened in that situation, and we look at what they are now. I don't think you necessarily need a superstar number one wide receiver on your team. If you have a well-balanced wide receiver room, you'll have success. But there's no denying the talents of someone like Odell Beckham Jr., what he can bring to your offense. I just don't think it's been a clean relationship between the two ever since the trade happened. There's been a couple games he's had some awesome games, but he's just not having the expectations aren't being met to what they were.
No, I agree with you. And they're not a passing team. They're trying to run the ball. So, and I think that's what Baker needs to be successful too. Because if you rely on Baker, we've seen that in the past. It's not what you need to do. So,
well, and it's kind of funny. It's like the trade between the Giants included some. I think what was the details of the trade? I know Jabril Peppers was part of it.
There was 2 trades, but they just combined them into one. It was Jabril Peppers, Kevin Zeitler, that right guard who's on the block again for the Giants, and a first-round pick for Odell and Olivier Vernon. So and Vernon's kind of
been the star of that trade.
Yeah,
wouldn't you say?
Him and Miles have been complimenting each other because
Miles
is starting to get the attention of double, triples, and And Vernon, he is a shell of his former self, but he's still able to make the plays. That defensive front able to make the plays. So,
Well, that solidifies your defensive front, in my opinion. I think that him and Miles Garrett are just a perfect tandem. It almost is as similar as Stephon Tuitt and Cameron Hayward in
mm-hmm.
Pittsburgh. And um, we'll discuss later the the game that happened 2 weeks ago. But I thought going into that game, I thought that was going to be the focus, was the defensive lines between the two teams. But going back to the Odell trade between the Giants and the Browns, if they were to trade him, wouldn't you say they would try and get a safety? I mean, that kind of is the lackluster of the team right now, is kind of the secondary besides Denzel Ward. But
I would say corner or linebacker, because they drafted Grant Delpit, so they're going to at least let him have a shot. They got Carl Joseph and Ronnie Harrison as safeties. Carl Joseph's hurt, and they Sheldrick Goodwine, but they're not playing him over Sendejo. And Sendejo, whenever there's something down deep, Sendejo is the one that they pick on. So I think they just need to make the coaching adjustment of playing someone over Sendejo. But I mean, the other corner is Terrence Mitchell, Terrence Mitchell's held his own here. But I mean, he's the one that gets picked out a lot. And Grady Williams has pretty much been hurt ever since he got drafted.
That's true.
And linebackers, I mean, Mac Wilson is coming along, but I mean, and Malcolm Smith, who is definitely not young, you know what I mean? So I think that if they were to trade Odell, it's got to be for a pick or a corner or like a linebacker. It's got to be.
It's definitely defensive side of the ball. I think they're set
sure.
on the whole point of that trade is to say, hey, our offense is pretty much set. We just we're going to take that asset and move it towards defense, So, but going off the Browns in that game between the Bengals, Joe Burrow kind of wasn't really discussed much, but he had a great game himself. I mean, given all that Cincinnati's been dealing with, there seems to be a little rift between the coaching staff and some of the players right now. But Joe Burrow just seems to be probably going to be the future of the AFC North, if I'm being honest.
I think that once they get a line, they're going to be very good very fast. I mean, they got Jim Mixon, they got T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd, the Tate guy. Oh, God, I can't remember his first name. John Ross wants out. A.J. Green's not going to be there probably after this year. Carlos Dunlap is on Twitter putting up pictures of his house for sale. The defense is where they need the most help. That and the offensive line. But, I mean, Burrow's back there making plays with a bunch of pylons blocking for him. So,
yeah, I mean, they have Joe Mixon, and Joe Mixon's a great running back, I think. But they really do need that offensive line, because it has been horrible for Joe Burrow trying to make plays. But he's been making something out of nothing. I mean, he really, he deserved that first pick overall, I think.
Oh, 100% he did.
But they have to address that offensive line in the next draft or in the offseason, whether it be free agency or trade. But, yeah, and the defense side of the ball is just it's pretty rough.
Oh, it's besides Von Bell, the guy that safety they signed in free agency, it's just kind of meh, man. They're missing their corner, but I mean, it's just. But they're holding their own. I mean, they're in games. It's just that they can't get over the hump of winning the close games.
It would be interesting, hypothetically thinking this. It's if they were in a different division other than the AFC North, would they have success? Because AFC North is easily the best division in football. Sorry to keep interrupting.
No, I keep interrupting you.
But I think the AFC North is just hands down the division that's just the toughest. I mean, for many years, it's been the toughest division.
Yeah,
and
when the Browns were, 2-5 or whatever, the Bengals would be right up there in the mix of things. I think if they were in the Cowboys division, where it's the Eagles in first place right now, they have a winning record because
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
that division is a mess.
Yeah, and we saw the game yesterday between the Redskins or the Washington football team.
Mm.
Keep getting that mixed up. My apologies. But the Washington football team and the Cowboys, that was just it was interesting. I think this Cowboys team is probably gonna be the last place team in that division, if I'm being honest.
Well, if they keep at the pace, they might be up there for a chance to get Trevor Lawrence if somehow the Jets
Wow.
screw up their tank, which would be I
That'd
would
be
say
an interesting topic. I mean, to think about. Do you think with the injury that happened with Dak Prescott, would they just move on from Dak and forget that
if
contract?
you have a chance to get Justin Fields or Trevor Lawrence, you can't hang up on Dak.
Yeah.
I personally don't think Dak is all that. I mean, his passing yard before he got hurt, his passing yard stats were good to look at, but I mean, it was always in like garbage time, when nobody cared about it.
He was having a good season. Being honest, it's a contract year.
But I
He,
mean, look,
he
he has CD Lamb, Cooper
Amari
Cup,
Cooper. Yeah.
Amari Cooper. He has three very good wide receivers there. That is expected, though. You know what I mean?
Right.
If you gave Trevor Lawrence those two or three with Zeke as a running back, which Zeke is not what he used to be, I think if there's a good chance Zeke might not be there after next year if it isn't improved. But I mean, if they're up there at the top 3 picks and they have a chance to get one of those quarterbacks, they've got to do everything humanly possible. Just because everything else is there besides the quarterback play. You know what I mean? That and the injuries.
I'm not bought in on this coaching staff either.
No.
With the whole thing that came out with someone anonymously talking to the media about the locker room, that's just I've watched different people say, that's just that does not happen with a winning football team. So,
No. And knowing Jerry, he's going to do something drastic after this year if it's bad like this still.
yeah, yeah. He is one of the most aggressive owners in football, so I wouldn't
Mm-hmm.
doubt it. But moving on to, let's just go right into it to the Steelers and Titans game, which was probably the most anticipated game, being both 5-0. Especially for me, being a Steelers fan, I was really excited for this game. It was, Steelers were dominant in the first half, and they stopped Derrick Henry, which a lot of people were. That was the big question mark. Could they stop Derrick Henry? And they did stop him in this game, but towards the second half, he would just seemed like he was getting started,
Mm-hmm.
and they barely won that game. It was a lucky game, but I just moving forward, they can't be just taking their foot off the pedal. You know what I mean?
Well, it's been a topic for the Steelers for some time now that they go to that prevent and they take their foot off the gas. I mean, the Eagles about did it to them too. You know what I mean?
That's true.
They've got to keep their foot on the gas. They did it against Cleveland. I think they get their foot on the gas against Cleveland kind of because of what's happened the past 2 meetings. You know what I mean? Especially
Yeah,
after last year. I think that was kind of what kind of kept their foot on the gas and didn't let Cleveland do anything. But I mean, you need to have that mentality for everyone else in the league too. You got to keep your foot on the gas and keep going with it.
I'm a little worried. Ben was looking good up until he had. There was an interception, which was kind of a really weird call towards the end of the first half. He had an interception in the end zone, but he had 3 picks, and he up until this meeting he had only 1 interception, and he's been having a phenomenal season.
Mm.
But I think Ben, that game, he felt like that was his worst game of the season, obviously, but the defense did bail him out. So I think if it were a game against the Chiefs, they would have probably lost that game. I'm guessing it's probably going to be either Chiefs and Steelers in the AFC Championship, or I really do think the Bills. If there's a team that could probably beat the Steelers, it's probably going to be the Bills. Even though they had that lackluster game against the Jets on Sunday. The Bills gave him trouble last season, so
you can sit there and say that about the Bills, but I mean, not knocking the Steelers. The Steelers had problems with the Eagles. You know what I mean?
that's true.
Everyone has those games, so like you can't sit here and pick apart what games are good against. I mean, obviously walking in to play the Jets, you're probably thinking we don't need to play that hard. You know what I mean?
Well, they did that last season. I mean, granted, they had Duck Hodges and Mason Rudolph, but it was just like they should win this game, and they struggled. You know what I mean?
I think the Bills are a piece or two away from really getting over the edge, and Stephon Diggs was a big piece of getting there.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
I think Josh Allen, all of his questions about his accuracy has kind of been chilled out. I mean,
I really like Josh Allen. I think he's a great quarterback. Devin Singletary, though, I don't think that's a true number one running back. I think they really need, if they had like a number one, like a Nick Chubb or someone like that behind there, they'd be one of the best in the league, honestly, because they have that defense. It's not the defense of last year, but it's still a defense that can win games, you know. So, moving forward, though, I mean, we talked about it earlier. I'm really surprised the Steelers are 6-0 because I was expecting a 4-0 start for the Steelers, but 6-0 is kind of, it's really making a statement here, being the last undefeated team. So I really am curious how they're going to approach this Ravens game. It's a tough game going into Baltimore. I'm hoping they flex this game to prime time because a Ravens-Steelers rivalry is always fun to watch, and with the division first place on the line, I think this is probably going to be the biggest game heading into next week.
Well, for sure, because I mean, if the Steelers lose, Ravens are in first place, I do believe.
Oh, I think they're tied. Oh, no, they're first because they have the better division record.
And I think that if the Ravens lose, we will be tied. Well, they'll be in second, but we'll have the same record, I think. They'll
have a better divisional record, won't they?
Yeah, and they.
No. You'd be 2-1. You'd be 2-1.
We're 2-2 because we lost to them week 1. So
that's right.
But I mean, it's one step closer of us moving up. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I really do think. I mean, the window and the door is not shut on the Browns just yet. I think they're still in the hunt, and even though we talked earlier with the loss of Odell, I think they could really, and their schedule gets easier from here, doesn't it?
They have the easiest remaining schedule in the league.
Right. So
I think that there's a good chance that all three of us make the playoffs too.
Oh, for sure. I mean, you look at the other divisions, it's pretty lackluster. I mean, people were talking about in the beginning of the season with Cam Newton and the Patriots, and it was not a pretty game against the 49ers.
No. The offense looks lost for them. They look completely just disoriented.
Yeah, and I think as well with the Bills, with having those struggles against the Jets, I mean, you kind of have to look out for Miami possibly. The whole Tua situation's a little weird, but
they're definitely got the right coach. I think
they got the right coach, and I think they're starting Tua for a reason. And I think they know they have a shot at probably winning this division.
They have a shot at least coming in second too.
At second, yeah.
The Jets are not competing for this division, no way
at all.
Statistically, I saw the Jets worse when the Browns went 0-16 and the Lions went 0-16. I think that the Dolphins have a really good chance of coming in second. I mean, if the Patriots are a team as NFL fans that we do not want getting Trevor Lawrence or a Justin Fields or even that guy from North Dakota State. I cannot remember his name for the life of me. So I think that, I mean, the first couple weeks, I mean, they look really good with Cam Newton, and now it's kind of fizzling out. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, the hype's kind of dying down on that. I don't know what direction they're going to head towards in terms of the quarterback. I would probably stick with Cam Newton, but
It's going to depend on what pick they get in the draft, and they got Stidham as a backup. But if there's one guy that can pull us all together and go on a run, it's Bill Belichick.
that's true. I mean, I Steeler fans, all fans of the NFL except for the Patriots. I mean, as much as we hated the Patriots, with the Brady and Belichick uh, duo,
Mm-hmm.
I think Belichick is the best coach in the league right now, and he is a coach that can. He is really the center of that team, and you can't really say that for a lot of coaches in the NFL. You can't really say an NFL coach will win you the game, but I think his strategy and his coaching ability is really some of the best and ever in the NFL. And
Well, the thing,
they should. It would be stupid if they moved on from Belichick, unless Belichick decides to retire, which I don't think he would, because I think he wants to prove that he can win without Brady. Um,
but Belichick, in another sense, would be one of those guys that says, "I have nothing to prove." You know what I
that's
mean?
true. That's true. Yeah, he's just you really couldn't guess with Belichick,
I
But
mean, I don't hate the Patriots. I really, I mean, being a Browns fan, I was not alive for the Belichick era before the Browns got moved. But what the, but how the Ravens came in and were a good team off the bat when they came in as the expansion team, and what the Patriots were and are is what the Browns should have been, and what the Browns are about 2 years away from doing. But they got moved. Um, it really fell apart. So we're not getting into that, but I mean,
yeah,
I kind of like to see it because this is what the Browns would have been with Belichick and Nick Saban as a defense coordinator. I mean, it would have been something really special,
yeah,
but they
yeah.
don't get to see it.
You always see in the in usually in Browns games. I saw it in the it was the Steelers Browns game in the CBS broadcast. They were talking about just that having Belichick and Nick Saban. I mean, that's just unreal to think about. But yeah, that's another topic for another day. Well, let's continue down the. Let's just talk about the biggest game of the night on Sunday, which or not the night, but the day was the Cards versus Seahawks.
Great game.
Awesome game. Everything you could have wanted in a primetime game. Um, you know, Cardinals are really that was a statement game for the Cardinals, even though they had the missed field goal in overtime, and you really thought the Seahawks were going to come back and they had the opportunity, but I think the Cardinals just proved to the league that said, "Hey, that undefeated team that's no longer undefeated, we're still, going to give a competitive effort in this division."
I think they're going to be a legit contender in the next couple of years once they get
Yeah,
a couple more things. I really don't know why they drafted Isaiah Simmons and they aren't going to play him. Um, he had he had an interception last time. I'm pretty sure he was on
yeah,
the
he had
field.
6 defensive snaps in the second half or whatever. It
I
might have
feel
been the
like
entire game. I
I
don't.
feel like what their issue is they don't know how to use them.
That's true because he's such a hybrid kind of player, but
Mm-hmm.
Steelers could use him right now with the middle linebacker position. But
Anybody with a brain could find a way to use him.
oh yeah,
I don't know how they do not find a way to use someone who's over 6'4" and can run like he can.
yeah, and that interception proved that he should be on the field a lot more. He's just they've been putting him on special teams, which is like I've seen a lot. The Steelers did that with Devin Bush and Ryan Shazier in their rookie seasons where they were taking special team snaps. But for a guy like Isaiah Simmons,
You don't draft a guy with his kind of talent and vision in the top 10 and not play him.
right? Yeah, and he should be the key piece in your for your defense and like
Because you can really put him anywhere and play him.
right. I mean, you should be building around that guy, and here we are, middle of the season, and he hasn't played that much. But great interception by him. It was a really interesting game for Russell Wilson. He threw some great touchdowns, but the interceptions was just it was unlike the Russell Wilson we've been seeing for the past 2 seasons.
Um, yeah, everyone has his games. I think. He's still my MVP pick to this point. He's unbelievable. I think
Yeah,
I think that it's just an off game. Everyone has them.
yeah.
I, I I honestly think this is an NFC Championship preview.
That's yeah.
I mean
We
the
discussed that. I
the
think
Seahawks are always going to be there, and the Cardinals are showing that they belong. So
well, and we've discussed it before. I think this the NFC isn't as competitive. I say NFC or AFC. NFC is not as competitive as the AFC because there's like two or three teams that you say, okay, on the NFC side, you say, okay, they're probably gonna make it. But I mean, the AFC is pretty much, I'd say, wide open. Steelers being undefeated, yeah, okay, but a team like the Chiefs, the Bills,
the top
the
four teams are
Titans,
pretty much there. It's those teams. The Ravens, I would say, are going to be there. It's really the
yeah, but
back
I mean,
end.
but you could even say like if the Browns go on this, they could because of their schedule. You
Mhm.
could say they go on this stretch where they play really great football and they're one of the teams in the AFC. You know what I mean? I mean, it's just you don't see that in the NFC, I think.
No,
Because, last year, I never thought the 49ers were that great of a football team, to be quite honest. I mean, Nick Bosa's heck of a player.
the
Um,
defense was good. I think Jimmy G is one of those guys who's just kind of serviceable, but they could crank out anybody in the backfield and the ball, and he run for 100 yards and score 2 touchdowns.
yeah.
Um, I thought they were a mad team. I was very surprised they made it that far. Um, Obviously, we knew nobody's going to beat the Chiefs, so
Yeah, going back like last season, I just don't. I mean, the Mason Rudolph Steelers almost beat them in San Francisco. Granted, it was the beginning of the season, um, but I kept that in my mind. I was like, this this Steelers team almost beat the NFC champions. You know what I mean?
yeah.
And I get that there's always those one-off games for teams, but the 49ers had those kind of games last season, and um, I don't really buy into that team, and I don't buy into Jimmy Garoppolo.
I'm right there with you.
Well, so we have the Monday night game. We're really not gonna discuss it much because this episode's gonna come out on Tuesday. But do you have any thoughts?
I think the Bears will
Quick
win. Defense will
Bears.
probably win that game. The Bears'
No,
defense
better.
is pretty much solidified. So if they have someone in the backfield like Nick Foles or Mitch Trubisky, whoever decides to play, if they can toss the ball accurately 3 times, they'll probably win the game. So
I hate keep giving the Steeler comparisons, but that team kind of reminds me of how the Steelers were last year without a true quarterback.
yeah,
Because Nick
me too.
Foles and Mitchell Trubisky are not legit QB1s. I mean, the defense is winning them those games, so I do agree. I do think the Bears will win this one tonight. But knowing us, our prediction might be wrong, and
Oh,
then
it'll
the
blow up in our
episode,
face.
yeah, when the episode comes out, so we're gonna look stupid. But yeah, do you have anything else you want to discuss real quick
Not
on our
really.
first episode, inaugural first episode?
Not really. Just come back. We're gonna be talking a lot. There's a lot going on in the sports world. There's not much else going on in the world because of the virus and the pandemic and everyone being kind of stuck at home. So come back because we're gonna be here. We're gonna be talking.
Oh yeah,
Interact. Any questions? We want to answer your questions. So if you have any questions, leave them in the comments. Tweet at us. Follow our Twitter. Um, just talk to us. We will interact with you. So
yeah, we really want to keep this interactive. So on Twitter you can add us. Like Garrett said, comment section below. I'm going to also leave our email. So if you guys want to email us and ask questions, we're going to try and answer some questions at least every episode. So yeah, and we're going to try to move towards the direction of having 3 episodes per week. It might be more, might be less, depending on how this goes, but
our questions, if you want us to talk, sorry to interrupt you, Cam, I just thought of it. I don't want to lose my thought. If you have anything about like fantasy, we'll try to give you our best advice. I'm kind of just winging it. I won a game without a running back this week, but you know what? I don't even care.
Yeah, don't take my fantasy advice. I've been having a very bad season.
If you don't have Justin Herbert, find a way to get him. That's all I want to tell you. But any questions at all, just leave it. Because more than likely, if we don't have an answer like on our own, there's 2 of us here, so we can put 2 heads together and put an answer together.
So yeah, we're gonna try and have also 1 guest per week. Our first guest is gonna be Jimmy Leonard, who I played baseball with growing up, but he's the host of the It's Just Jimmy Leonard podcast, and he talks pretty much the same stuff as us, but he's more broad when it comes to NFL. He's not very biased like us with being Steelers and Browns fans, but he's going to come on and discuss some NBA and MLB with the World Series going on. Garrett's a big LeBron being the GOAT fan, so we're going to discuss who the true GOAT is in the NBA. So really looking forward to that. Thanks again for listening. We look forward to future podcasts with you guys. And, don't forget to like and subscribe.